U.S. Surgeon General released this 85-page document, and it was titled Our Epidemic of Loneliness and Isolation. And statistically, they're literally saying loneliness is killing people. It's the biggest health issue, even more than heart disease now, is loneliness.
Access more.
Find a reason to be here that's bigger than you are.
From the creators of Jesus Revolution.
Something about that little girl. I think I'm supposed to help.
Based on the inspiring true story.
My name is Sharon. I'm good at plenty of things. Taking no for an answer ain't one.
Find your purpose. Make a difference.
You want to go on an adventure?
Yeah.
Ordinary Angels. Starring two-time Academy Award winner Hilary Swank and Alan Richson. Rated PG. Parental guidance suggested. In theaters February 23rd.
Life is like a roller coaster, but it's so much better when we go through it together. Welcome to the Candace Bure podcast. Our theme this season is Reset Body, Mind, and Soul. And my guests today are Chris and Julie Bennett. When we talk about the soul, we're not just talking about our spirit. We're talking about all the things that make life good and joyful and full. A vibrant, healthy family is good for the soul. Julie and Chris Bennett love people and they love families. Together, they faced overwhelming challenges, but they've learned how to fight for the things that matter and devote themselves to helping other people do the same. They love nothing more than beach football, spontaneous road trips, and throwing a good party. They have 4 amazing kids and a golden doodle named Champ. The Bennetts live in Malibu, California, where Chris serves as lead pastor of Vintage Church Malibu. And today they're actually joining us virtually because they just dropped off their son Nate at Baylor University, where he'll be playing football. Chris, Julie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Candace. So thankful to be on. Appreciate it.
And congratulations to Nate. How exciting.
Oh my gosh.
So exciting.
It's so bittersweet. We both went to Baylor. And so, it's like your dream to raise up your kids, to go do all these great things until they're ready to leave. And we have cried every day. It's very bittersweet.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Halfway through their senior, he graduated early. So it's all the feels.
Yeah, I know. I remember the day I dropped my son off at college and cried and cried. He was back pretty soon, but that's another story. So I would love to share how we met. We met because we do have some mutual friends in common. And I was shown a trailer for a documentary show that you guys had done because your whole life is about family and helping other families and also sharing the struggles that you've been through. And I was so captivated watching the trailer that I just knew I had to meet you. I was like, I need to meet these people and sit down and have a conversation. And that has started a really, really lovely friendship with you both. So I'm grateful that you're in my life and my family's life.
Oh, Candace, thank you for, you've been incredibly kind and gracious to my entire family. And it's been fun, like you said, to kind of see the crossover of friendships and relationships.
Yeah,
really sweet.
It's been fun watching, watching from afar your life for years, right? Growing up and then being able to meet, I just have to say, being able to meet someone that carries the sincere love of God like you do. So I just had to say that's something powerful that you give away in our friendship and to the world, that, the world needs sincere love. God says it must be sincere. And you cross bridges by being so authentic and pure-hearted, and getting to see that up close and personal has been really a gift. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for those kind words. They mean a lot to me. Yeah. I would love for you guys to share a story about your family and a story that embodies what your family is all about.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in Texas. She's from Oklahoma. We spent years pastoring in Oklahoma. And I used to always say this phrase that sounded really good as a soundbite, and then it got really tested when we tried to live it out. But I used to always just say, hey, if God calls you to do something, just say yes before you know how. And it's a very long story how we got there. But in 2018, all we could say is we knew God was calling our family to uproot to move to Los Angeles. We kind of had a general sense of what we were going to do is we're going to build family kind of organically with people. We're going to create kind of family-oriented, inspiring media to bring people together. And we realized faith is very naive. God will only sometimes tell you enough to get you to say yes. And then you step out and you realize, oh, there's a lot he didn't show me, but that's the trust piece. So we ended up kind of transitioning the church over, moved to LA. We moved, literally, Candace, without a job, without a home, with 4 kids.
Wow.
And we were just on a faith journey, but we had so much expectation in our heart. I can't explain it. We were excited for a new start. And so point is, we moved here, move in with a family that we met in Burbank that were kind of empty nesters that let us move in. And I'm going to let her tag on her part of the story in a minute. But faith is this thing that, I heard somebody say faith is spelled R-I-S-K. And again, that sounds really good, but there's that element of uncertainty and unknown that we stepped into without anything of a safety net to hold on to. And so we move in with this family, and then I'll kind of let you tag on to your part of it.
Yeah, so we were supposed to live with this family for 2 weeks while we closed on our house that had sold in Oklahoma. And then we were off on our adventure, right? We were going to live off the sale of our house and rest for 6 months. And our adventurous choice and risk really turned into a journey of really having to be a brave one. Like life gave us no choice but to be a brave one. And 2 weeks in, the people backed out in our house. And at first it was like, this is crazy. What are we doing? And those 2 weeks turned into 2 months. And 3 weeks in, I went to the doctor, had a biopsy 3 weeks into being in LA, and found out I had stage 3 breast cancer.
Wow.
And everything shifted. So now we didn't have a home. We still owned the home in Oklahoma. All of our community and family were there, and people really thought we had lost our minds, and we had a huge choice to make.
Yeah.
I can't imagine being in that position. I can't imagine the thoughts that were going through your mind and the weight on both of your shoulders to not just make those decisions for each other, but also for your children.
Yeah, we've always tried to live in such a way that obviously we're going to make decisions on behalf of our family, but we've always pulled our kids in and said, hey, this is a we decision. And so even when we made this big choice, they were leaving behind their friendships. They were leaving behind their relationships. And even though they were, obviously this is 5.5 years ago, we walked through a journey with them of saying, this is where we believe we're being led, but we want you guys to pray with us. And I can tell you, each one of them had a yes in their heart. And we knew that was really important, even though we didn't know what we were going to come up against. We knew they needed their own measure of resolve. And so that was the beautiful part, is when everything got challenged and tested, there was never a wavering of, why did mom and dad do this? I had that internal, like, did we totally make this up, or did we totally miss it? And, my wife she is a brave one. And she was the one that really said, you know what? God called us here. We didn't know this was in the part of the story, but nothing's really changed. If he called us here, we're going to stay. And so we made this decision that regardless of, we had a home back in Oklahoma, we had family and community there, we believed we were called and that we were going to trust that God was going to take care of us through the journey.
It's like the risk got riskier, and we had a choice to make. And this is a terrible game, and maybe it's not the best example, but I'm going to go with it.
Okay.
So you think about like Russian roulette, right? You've got 6 chambers, and you have 1 bullet in there, and it was like, okay, so I think this is going to work out. There's that possibility it may not turn out well. And then we have a cancer diagnosis, and I have to start chemo immediately, and we have no home. And now it's like, they all feel filled but one. And is this what we're going to do? But walking with God is so much about like, here's this invitation. I'm not going to force it on you. I'm not going to choose. I'm going to be with you whichever way you go. But if you open the invitation with God and knowing that his faithfulness is always what's on the inside, it's when he shows up like, okay, here we are. So
can I ask you something, Candace?
Sure.
Okay. Just thinking about before we moved, we were reading about Abraham, and it, again, those stories sound really great. And then you find yourself living in it, and you're like, oh wow! It talks about Abraham left the familiar, kind of going to the place that was promised. And I was just thinking through, like, what's a time maybe in your life where you left? Maybe it's a season that you had to leave something behind. Maybe you didn't know what you were stepping into. Like, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, I think I've talked about this several times. The first thing I think about is really leaving my home when I got married. And that was stepping out of my career, because I had an entire career until I was 18, and then moving to Canada, which is a different country, with my new husband. And it felt like I was leaving everything in my life behind. My family and my career at the doorstep. And I was now Val's wife in this new country and had to figure out what my life was going to look like. It was very unknown for me because I couldn't work in Canada. Like, you know, there was all kinds of things. And then, I mean, as a practical answer, being a hockey wife, we moved 6 times, I believe, during Val's NHL career. And that's a bit of an unknown. It's like you get a call one day and you've been traded. Oh, so you pick up and you get on a flight, or you get in the car and start driving and the moving van comes and you're in a new city. And we did that from Montreal to Calgary to St. Louis to Dallas to Florida to LA, back to Florida. And so there is a lot of unknown. But I say that in that I can look at my circumstances and say, oh, okay, but maybe that was exciting for me and my family. I didn't have a cancer diagnosis in front of me.
Yeah.
So I really am curious as to how you made the decision not to go back to what was familiar in Oklahoma.
That's really good. You know, I would say I kind of started mentioning that whole picture of having like an envelope as an invitation from God. And I think we were faced with this, you know, as I said, like we made this what felt like an adventurous risk. And now life gave us no choice. Life didn't give us a choice, but to be a brave one. And what did that bravery look like for us as a family moving forward in relationship to God? And, you know, I think so much about the unfamiliar with God as like this envelope going, here you go. You can open this up. And I've had times in my life where the invitation of God for us as believers are always coming towards us, or this free gift that he gives us in different situations and seasons. And if we just keep carrying them around and never open them, they get really weighty. And that's at times when we can go, is God really who he says he is? Did he show up? I thought he said this. Why did it turn out like this? And I think there was a choice that we were able to make as a family, and specifically for us as parents and as a couple, to say, we have opened this invitation that God gives so many times, and it has never failed, and it forever proves faithful. It may not look like what I think. It may not feel like what I think it should. But if I know that, if I understand God's ways, and he's shown me that, then I'm always going back to those memorial stones of him. So, I'm opening this up. And I found out I had cancer in LA and not in Oklahoma. He wanted me to find out here. If I would have found out in Oklahoma a few weeks prior, then I would have never have come. And that's how God works in our stories, right? There was this moment where I was trying to get in the doctor 3 or 4 days before we were like packing everything up, saying goodbye to the church we had pastored for a decade in Oklahoma. And they couldn't get me an appointment for the biopsy. She's like, we've definitely got to check this out. And I'm like, you know what? It was kind of a bizarre situation. And so in retrospect, I'm like, oh, because I needed to find out here. And I needed to go, oh, here, I'm opening this up. I don't know what this looks like. People think we've lost our minds, but I'm putting these pieces together. I'm remembering your goodness. And I think that this is worth the risk. And we did. And we moved. It's a longer story we don't have time for, but we moved 20 times in 6.5, 7 months in the same suitcases.
While she was doing chemo.
While I did chemotherapy.
Wow.
And again, this amazing family we were living with, like we knew it was time to move out. We didn't want to overstay our welcome. And then 2 days later, I found out I had cancer. And so again, it's those little choices along the way.
Can I add one thing to that real quick?
Yeah.
Candace?
No, you can't.
Please.
I thought I'd ask. The
You don't have
crazy
to
thing was the month that we had just moved to LA, I get a text from a guy that's become a close friend since, but he was in Oklahoma. I probably talked to him twice in my life, but he basically sent me a message. And he said, I was praying for you. I woke up at 4 a.m. And what I felt God speak to me was that it's your faith that led you to LA, but it's your trust that's going to keep you there. Now, this is before everything went AWOL. And I remember reading it thinking, oh, that's nice. But I will tell you, as the journey went on, that became the theme is I will risk as much as I'm willing to trust.
That's good, babe.
Anyway.
That's really good. That's really good. So what was it like going through all of these new things in a really unfamiliar place?
It was insanity. And it's funny how you're on the other side of it. And I'm sure you feel this and you look back, you're like, how did I do that? And I remember somebody saying years ago, God gives you special grace. And it's this idea that if we compare our stories, you can't. You're like, oh, I could never do that. It's like, well, one, you weren't called to do the same thing. So there's no comparison. But if God invites you into something and you step, there is a grace that is sufficient that you didn't need before you stepped into it. So at one level, I don't really know, because there were times as a husband and a dad, I broke down and I'm like, God, am I being irresponsible? Like, are we chasing some foolish dream? Am I putting my family in an unhealthy situation? And every time we would hit that place, I would just feel as I'd get a text message or God would speak to me in a scripture and he would say, I am with you and I am going to provide and take care of your family. And it was rarely in the way that we thought. But the best way I can explain it is, if you think about like the summiting of Everest, if your goal is the summit, you don't do it in one day. It's an investment of time, a lot of money, but there's base camps that you go to and you go to these so that you can acclimate and you stay there long enough so that you have the capacity and the endurance to go to the next place. So I think as we look back on our life, because we probably won't have time, we have been through so much. We write about it in our book that's coming out, but about our marriage in 23 years. Every place of trial and suffering was like another base camp that God took us through so that we would have a measure of endurance to then go to the next place. So I just think that's the whole journey with God, is for the rest of our lives, we're going to keep taking risks because we know he's going to keep coming through.
And, as we know, what you believe about God dictates the choices that you make.
Yes.
And so it's not just enough to know, it's not just to know what he does, what he will do for you, but it's his characters, his ways. And those are the things that sustain us along the way over and over again. So we had enough of those to go, I will take this leap every time because he hasn't failed me. And those are the moments I remember getting there. And, Chris is pastoring a church again in Malibu now. But we didn't think that we would be in that type of ministry again. We were creating content and media and all this stuff. And I also would like to say, as a side note, be careful what you tell God you'll never do again, right? And you're like, oh, here I am. You're like, really, just a second. But it's been such a journey of, God just being faithful along the way. So
yeah. And you guys keep saying that you are risk takers. And I feel like people are more naturally inclined to be risk takers. Some people are people of security and safety. But when you say risk taker, what I'm really hearing is a deep level of faith and a reliance on God. And I want to know where that comes from within both of you.
I think faith looks really foolish on the outside. And I think Julie is braver than me. She is, more like willing to risk than I am. Like, her personality type is that way. I'm not that way. I think all I can say is God's track record is what's given me the faith to keep stepping out. And I tell people sometimes, like, we get stuck in, well, what does God want me to do? And I think the theme that we see in Scripture is the by faith. And it's almost as if whatever we do by faith, God will partner himself with, because God's not, he's looking to partner. He wants to come alongside of us. So I just think for me, what's enabled me to keep taking risk and staying in it is it's almost like people, if they step out and maybe life didn't pan out the way they thought, God didn't show up in the way they wanted him to, people pull away and they get bitter and angry at God. And I think about that scripture where it says, don't grow weary in doing good. For in due season, you'll reap a harvest if you don't give up. And I think there's so many times that we've given up a little bit too early when the breakthrough was closer than we knew and we wouldn't have. And if we just hold on long enough.
Yeah, it's like, it's what I love reading about the Old Testament. I'm on my second trip around the Bible in a year. Yeah. So what I love about the Old Testament and reading through that is looking at all of the Israelites and how many times they lost faith and gave up, and how many times, I mean, God was always there, but he would come and rescue because it's what he wants to do. He wants to rescue us. He loves us in a way that is beyond comprehension. And when you read it through in the full story of the Old Testament, and then you see them again, go like, thank you, God, for saving us and rescuing us. And then not long after, they just lose hope. Where's God? He forgot about us. He's not here. He's abandoned us. And we just go back to old ways and old habits. But then God comes in and he goes, nope, let me remind you again. And I think the whole Old Testament is this book that I never, ever want to stop reading, because I constantly need to be reminded in my real life, because it only takes one day to have something beat me down and allow me to kind of forget God's goodness, his grace, his mercy, his love and restoration for me, and his desire for me to know him. And so I love that you guys have gotten that message earlier than I got it in life. You know, I'm seeing it more and more today and every day. And, but I just love hearing that from you, that you see how good he is. And if you trust him, he just keeps coming to do his will and ultimately lead us on the path that is going to be best for us, even if it doesn't look like what we want it to.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And I would just tag on that for me, alongside of what Chris shared, it's those moments in life. I mean, I grew up in a Christian home, an amazing family, but there was these moments in my life where I did ask hard questions and I wrestled through some things and, and I wondered things theologically about the Bible. And every time I asked certain questions, anytime I was coming to the Lord, he always brought me to something better and more whole. As I had to break something down or misunderstand, there was these moments, whether it was in suffering, whether it was in a Bible study that I had questions about, whether it was when I was really deeply hurt by the church at some times in my life, as I brought these things to the Lord and I allowed him to release his truth, it always created something more whole and better. And so when I come to these places in my life, I'm like, it comes back to the invitation analogy of, oh, I'm opening this up fast. I'm not carrying it around as much anymore. Year by year, walking with God, whether it's cancer or whether it's what school does my kids go to, it's, oh, wait a second. You've always, in my moments of, I'm not sure, I don't know, I feel a little disappointed, or God, where are you? But when I open it up, whether that's going to his word, whether that's God sending a friend along, whether that's in my community, I'm like, oh, you've just brought something more whole in me, and you've constructed something better. So now I can rip open these things that you give to me, and your word becomes more alive. Your word begins to create deeper fruit in me and bring more hope. Yeah. And that's, I think, the why.
That's so encouraging for someone that's listening or watching today, that you're giving them the freedom within the examples of your own life to trust God more just a little bit today, to not be afraid to open up the invitation that he's given you and not be scared of it, but to embrace it. So thank you for sharing that. Take the ick out of chicken in 2024 with Good Ranchers. During their New Year promotion, you can get free chicken for a year. Instead of buying low-quality meat for high prices, you can stock up on high-quality cuts and save hundreds. Subscribe to any box, and they'll add over 2 pounds of pre-trimmed, better-than-organic chicken breasts to your order for free. This chicken is different from the chicken you know. It comes from a no antibiotics ever program, which means it has never been given antibiotics, hormones, or vaccines for its entire life. And that's why their chicken has over 2,000 5-star reviews. Simply go to goodranchers.com, pick your box, use my code CANDY, and enjoy $189 of free chicken in 2024, plus $20 off your first order. Stock your fridge with easy to prepare, clean, delicious meat all year long. Not sure which box to choose? Try their brand new weekly essentials box full of pre-trimmed beef and chicken that helps you meal prep so you can save time without sacrificing flavor. Start your year off right with meat you can trust. Make sure to subscribe today and use my code CANDY to claim over $200 in juicy, tender chicken and New Year's savings. GoodRanchers.com, American meat delivered. So through all of the challenges and experiences that you guys have faced, you've written a new book. It's called Fighting for Family. Tell me how it came about and why you feel that this message is so needed today.
Well, I think we live in a culture where people are really good at fighting with their family. I think people need to learn even practical ways to fight for family and why it's worth it. And it was so interesting because basically the trailer that you were talking about that you saw was sent to a book publisher through HarperCollins, and they had reached out to us. This is almost 3 years ago now to write this book. And then COVID hit, Julie's cancer came back.
It was in the middle of chemo. It was crazy.
Because that was part of it. She was in remission for a year, came back again. And so what was so interesting, and even when we were going through the 20 moves and we had no income, no savings, no retirement, 4 kids in private school, what the heck, in LA.
That sounds so bad as you retell it, like no retirement, no.
But it was almost like we could zoom out of ourselves and feel like, God, you're writing a story that actually isn't about us. And so through these 20 moves, we start meeting friends or strangers that became friends that became like family that are still in our lives. And so sometimes we were staying in somebody's on their floor or somebody's master bedroom while they were out of town for 2 weeks. But God just began to dial it in for us of just his heart for family. And so pastoring a church, for me, it's like the church is called the family of God. It is the household of God is what scripture calls it. But I think this theme verse in Psalm 68, it says that God places the lonely in families. So when God is surveying the whole world, he's looking for the lonely, the disconnected, the isolated, and he's looking to bring them into a sense of community, family, and belonging. So we had no idea as we wrote this, COVID would hit, we would have all these moves, but it began to stir this thing within us of, family is the longing of every human heart. And so just this past May, the U.S. Surgeon General released this 85-page document, and it was titled, Our Epidemic of Loneliness and Isolation. And statistically, they're literally saying loneliness is killing people. It's the biggest health issue, even more than heart disease now, is loneliness. And so what's being called depression, they're saying now the root of it is actually loneliness. So we wrote this book to essentially help people, whether you are wanting to get more connected with your actual family, or for most people, their chosen family is their deeper family and community. And yet, because of our past experiences, our trauma, our pain, our disappointments, we create these barriers to experiencing the power of connection and belonging. So we really wrote this to help people kind of overcome the barriers to experience the beauty and the power of family.
Yep.
Oh, that's
you should
beautiful.
be a pastor and preach for family.
I know.
You're really good at this.
You absolutely should. And when does the book come out?
Book comes out March 12th. So we're 2024. We're really excited. We have a really fun song that I'm writing with an incredible songwriter around the heart of the message of the book. And so we're really excited.
Can I ask you a question on this? This whole idea of kind of what we experienced is just like, we have our immediate family that we are so committed to, but we have this whole sense of other people that are like family to us. And I would love to hear in your own journey, I know family is a very big deal to you, but how have you experienced family outside of maybe your family of origin, kind of maybe call it your chosen or found family? Yeah,
I'm very grateful that I have a strong family and a great relationship with my mom, my dad, my brothers and sisters, my aunts and uncles and cousins. Like there's a lot of us and we're all pretty close. I'm very grateful for it, but I certainly have a family outside of my family. The first one that I think of is my Full House family. And I mean that with my heart. I know there's people listening going, oh, that makes me so happy. You're really family with your TV family. But, I grew up with them literally most of my life. And so they really became a second family to me. But also, you know, I'm a relational kind of person. It means a lot to me. And I think this speaks true for most of us. I would rather be able to count my close friends on one hand and have deep connected relationships than just have like a bunch of frivolous relationships or acquaintances. And so the people that are very close to me that are not blood related relatives, you know, my best friend's been my best friend since I was 15. And my business partners, who are also my best friends, Jeffrey and Ford, we've worked together almost 25 years. And I consider them to be family. And I have a handful of people like that in my life, which I agree. If my own family weren't available or there, those people are just as close to me as and belong as my family, as blood. Mm-hmm. And it's true. Awesome. I think that family is really, it's just where your heart is.
That's right.
Yeah. Family's where your heart is. Well, you guys are so passionate about family. Why do you think, obviously relationships can be tough, but why do you think, maybe from a pastoral point of view, why family is so hard for so many people?
You know, I think we're human, right? God's given, created us in this humanity where it is, we come with a lot, right?
Yeah.
Our stories are all so unique. We didn't grow up with a mom. We didn't grow up with a dad. We were hurt. We, maybe we were adopted. Maybe we were in foster care. Maybe our church family. We've come with so many different things. We've experienced so much that when we think of family and the definition of family, all of a sudden our minds are thinking so many things. Like someone might hear fighting for family and that triggers something in them that someone's like, yes, we're all, it comes with so much. So, family is supposed to be, when I think of family, I'm thinking safety. I can be who I am. I can bring all my stuff to the table. And when family, whatever that looks like for us, doesn't feel like that, it becomes really complicated. And how do we move forward, and how do we build family?
How would you encourage people that are discouraged with their family, or their family's a hot mess?
Yeah. That's a good question.
I mean, one of the chapters in our book is about honor, and honor is, if we think about the table of family, like honor is kind of the tabletop that everything sits on, and honor is that ability to see somebody as God sees them. The best definition I heard was, it's celebrating who somebody is without stumbling over who they aren't. And I think we all have our issues. We're all in process. We all have things that are working in us and out of us because of our past pain and trauma. And I think one of the things that we've tried to cultivate in our family is that we're going to keep honor at the forefront. It's how Jesus is, so that anybody could come into an interaction with Jesus. And their honor is you get an upgrade. It means to elevate someone's position. It's not flattery. It's that you see somebody from a heart standpoint. You don't get caught up on what is not yet formed in them. So to boil it down, go read the book. We talk more about it. But I just think really trying to see people as God sees them, asking Him for their God's heart for them, so that you can see them in that way. Yeah. Because when you do that, you start to have a lot more grace for people. And I think humility is a big piece, to realize we're all in process. We're all on a journey of growth and development, and hopefully we keep growing. But that's what I tell people. I mean, we talk about it in the book. There are some relationships that are toxic and abusive and unhealthy that you don't need to be, quote, family and in close relationship with. But there are relationships that are worth fighting for. And I have to read one verse, and I want you to share it.
Yeah, please.
Only because you ever find a verse you're like, I didn't even know that was in the Bible. God, you put that in there for me, and I'm going to let other people borrow it.
Never experienced that.
I found this after we had named the book and the whole thing, and it's in Nehemiah 4:14.
This is good.
And Nehemiah 4:14. It says, don't be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, who's great and awesome, and fight for your families, your sons and your daughters, your wives and your homes. I was like, that's it.
Yeah.
From God's perspective, relationships and love are always worth fighting for.
Yeah.
And some people are like, well, what's the formula for fighting for family? And what's this? And I'm like, you know what? So many times, especially as Christians, we are looking for a formula. And the formula, as cliche as it sounds,
we want a 1, 2, 3 step on everything.
And what is it? What's the practical? And it's like, the formula is God and the uniqueness of who he is in your family, in your journey, whether it's, and I would answer that question of like, why did we write this book? And it's like, I am thinking about the lonely person that literally might be, maybe you're homeless. Maybe it's a lonely people, or maybe it's, I have 6 kids running around me and I have family and I have aunts and uncles and we're super close, but I feel a loneliness inside to know where I fit. Like loneliness expands to so many different things, right?
Yeah.
But, and I think about the fact that like, so many times in family, I can find myself, there's my immediate family. And I'm always working through what that looks like. But there's also that, like how I'm serving other people, how I'm stepping outside of my immediate family. And I had a situation where there was an event that we had at church and I saw this lady, we had a Q&A, and I just felt in my heart, in my spirit, Lord said, you need to take her to coffee. I knew nothing about her. She was, probably 10 years plus older than me. And I'm thinking, okay, great. Lord, that you need to take her to coffee. Well, fast forward, I get her number, I talk to her, I forget to call her, to be honest, and months go by, and I'm like, I've never called her, I forgot, I saw her at church, hit miss, and I can't get a hold of her. I run into her, and I remember the Lord said, I told you to take her to coffee. We go to coffee, I found out that she has been living in her car for 7 years.
Oh, wow.
And again, it's a much kind of complex, unique story. And here I think I'm going to love this lady and take her to coffee. And can I tell you, it was a moment that changed my life when I sat with this woman. And after 2 hours of getting to know her story and her life, my life, it sounds dramatic, but my life has changed forever. And that was about 4 months ago. And she is one of my dearest friends. And sometimes when we think I'm going to bring, I'm going to help her belong, God's like, actually, I'm going to teach you something more in family that you've never discovered before. The moment you think, we've never arrived, we're always learning. We will be until we go into heaven. And I think we can keep learning. But there is this moment sometimes when it's like creating family and we're trying to do the right things and good things out of our heart. God just flips the script and he's like, you know what? I'm going to show you someone here. Sometimes the world judges. The world doesn't understand. The world would say this, that, and the other. And even you, Julie, didn't see her rightly, unintentionally. But as I sat with her, the way she obeys the voice of God, according to his word, literally has changed me forever. I wish I could talk about it for an hour. Every time I see her, I start to weep because of God and her life. I have learned more about the Lord in the last 4 months than I have maybe in the last 5 years. And God's like, that's an aspect of family. So anyway. Yeah.
Wow, that was beautiful.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Sometimes we have to bring belonging. Instead of waiting to belong, we have to bring belonging and bring who we are. And it's always an exchange. So.
Yeah. Word. So before I get to our listener question, I think everyone listening would like to know, Julie, where are you at with the cancer diagnosis after it came back?
Thanks.
We didn't.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah. We kind of skirted past that.
I had cancer, by the way. Well, I'm real thankful to have hair again. I straightened it today for the listeners.
It looks quite beautiful.
It's normally really curly. That was my chemo hair. After, like I mentioned, a battle in 2018, stage 3, and then a year later it came back right when the world was shutting down, and it was a fight for my life. And I am here. I'm 2 years cancer-free. I may have another little surgery left, but I'm really thankful. And some people always say you're in remission. And I'm like, actually, remission is to come back. So I'm just going to say I'm cancer-free. Yes. And I plan on staying that way. And, people ask me a lot, like, why don't you post more on your socials about cancer and all that? And, God, for me personally, it was like, you know what? That is not your identity. And so you're going to be able to reflect and let the light of God shine through you and who he was for me in that time. But I'm actually moving forward out of that place into new things. And so I'm just thankful. I'll leave it at that. I'm thankful to be 2 years cancer free.
So thankful.
Praise God. Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
Okay, so here is our listener question. It's from Trista, who says, my husband and I separated 3 months ago when he asked me and our child to leave. Since then, I've been served with divorce papers and he's moved on to a new relationship. Even with all of this, I still give forgiveness every day, and I pray that his heart is healed and that he'll come home to us. Something in me just won't give up. How do you keep moving forward in a storm that feels like you're paddling in a hurricane in circles? How could we encourage Trista today?
Well, first of all, Trista, am I saying that right, Trista? First of all, Trista, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry for what you've gone through and what the pain that you experienced through that. I want to say that first and foremost. Thank you for being brave and coming on and asking this question. I'll speak for me. I would say that there was something really powerful in the story in the Bible when the storm was raging all around and the disciples are freaking out. Because they're like, this is kind of like a storm we've never seen before. Like, this doesn't normally happen around here. What's going on? And many of us maybe know the story. You know, Jesus is peacefully sleeping in the boat. And and to bring this back to the context of you, there's a storm going on and you're holding out hope. And I just see this picture of the Lord coming alongside of you when you don't know quite when it's going to stop or if it'll stop. But it's going to be his presence that's going to guide you in holding out hope for the things in your heart. I believe the things that you're believing for, however it turns out, he is going to give you a new part of who he is for you, his love for you, his kindness for you and your daughter. The things that you can't control, the choices of, the man that left you, you can control how you see God in those moments. And he's going to give you the ability to hold space for both. As you experience his peace, like he was for the disciples when the storm was going on around them.
I love that. Do you have any? Yeah. Are we?
You got anything?
That's it. Julie.
Cheers.
Julie. Yeah.
I could have made that 30 minutes long, but so.
I think I would just honor your process and give yourself a ton of grace in your process because we write about it in our book, but we went through, an affair at the beginning of our marriage, and Jules had come out of a background of abuse, and we worked through a lot of that brokenness. And I think I was not as kind to myself at times because I wanted to forgive her, which I did, but I bypassed my own grief and pain and because I felt like, oh no, that's the right thing to do and is the right thing to do. But that's what I just want to honor is like you keeping your heart that tender to be able to forgive. That's what God works with. And your prayers for your husband, I don't know the outcome of it all, but I just want to honor you for the way you're walking through it. That's, how.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
now that you just dropped that bomb.
Yeah. Sorry.
On all of is that story in your book?
Yeah.
You talk about it.
Okay, so that was a big bomb. Yeah.
That was a big bomb. So if you want to know more about that and how they fought for their family, you're going to have to go grab their book.
And I'm going to say one really quick line. When God restores something, it's better than it was before. Not every story ends in the reconciliation. I mean, we got a lot of problems. Don't get me wrong. But God, we used to. We don't ever fight now. No. But there's been a restoration out of what we went through, and it's a long doozy of a story. But God has repaired it better than it was before. And even if the outcome is not what you're praying for, God will take those pieces and he'll make things better than they were, even if it's just your heart, even if it's how you see him. So focus on those things. Yeah.
Another word, Jules.
Well,
Thanks, Julie. Thanks, Chris, so much for joining my podcast and being here and being so open and sharing stories and ministering to families. In your neighborhood and all over the world, all the people that are going to read your book and that have listened to you over the years and at your church as well. They're blessed to have you as a pastor. And I'm grateful for our friendship. And
we love you, Candace.
I love you guys too. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Candace.
Remember, I have a free reset guide for you with quotes and tips from all of our season 5 guests. You can find it at Candace.com and through a link in our show notes. Join me next week for the final interview of this series. We've been learning about living in new and healthy ways, and we're wrapping up by talking about laughter with comedian Jason Earls. You will not want to miss it. Until next time, be grateful all day, every day. This has been a Candace Cameron Bure podcast, a production of Candy Rock Entertainment. Some of the products and services mentioned are paid promotions. Any advice should be confirmed with a qualified professional. Opinions and ideas are for entertainment purposes only and belong to Candy Rock Entertainment. All rights reserved.